One complication that was not addressed in the previous two tutorials of the series is the occurrence of missing data. Two common ways that missing data are included in an Excel worksheet are by using a non-numeric character, most commonly a period, or by leaving a cell empty or blank. To demonstrate issues handling missing data in Excel, I will once again turn to the hypothetical class data and the table of descriptive statistics created to compare the performance of women and men on Exam 1. As it stands right now, there is no missing data for any of the variables in the spreadsheet. I'm going to replace the Exam 1 score for several women with a period to indicate missing information. As I do so, notice how the descriptive statistics in the female column change as the data are modified. In each instance where there is a period in a cell in the Exam 1 column, Excel does not take that cell into consideration when computing the descriptive statistics. This is why the descriptive statistics for female students change. Let's assume here that Lucy has not taken the exam yet, nor has Lily, Lisa, and Emily. Perhaps they were all involved in some sort of, let's assume, a school-sponsored activity. However, you may have noticed that the number of female students has not changed. The number of cases should reflect the number of data points used to compute the reported descriptive statistics, while the mean, median, minimum, maximum, perhaps range, standard deviation, skewness, all those values did change. The sample size did not for females. Clicking on this cell where we have then the formula for counting the number of women in this class, we can see that in the formula bar that only the values entered into the sex column are used to count the number of women in the class who have sat for exam number 1. What we will need to do is to add an additional criterion for making this count. To do this, the COUNTIFs function must be used. The new formula in this cell then should be as follows. Equal COUNTIFs, just to start from the beginning, comma, highlight the range of the first criterion, comma, the criterion value, female, comma, the criterion range for the second variable we'll use here, and this is the actual exam score, comma, and now what we'll do inside of double quotations, we'll put does not equal, and the not equal is less than sign followed by a greater than sign, double quote, and means add to the not equal, again in double quotation marks, is a period. And I will add the right parenthesis to close that function. So what we see here in this latter portion for the second criterion value is if an exam score does not equal period, then what it will do, it will count then those cases. Hit enter, and we see now that there are 6 cases of women in this class who also have a recorded exam score value. Now we could do the same thing for males, but there is no missing data for males in this variable, but it would be the exact same process. Now let's take a look at how to handle missing data in Excel when an empty or blank cell is used instead of a non-numeric character. I will just delete the periods in these 4 cells that have missing exam scores for exam 1, and you notice I'm not even leaving a space in these cells, so they're completely empty of any characters whatsoever. And as I made each change, what you should have seen is that several of the statistics for female did change as well. Clearly, one of the pieces of information that is incorrect for these female statistics is that of the number of individuals who took the exam. It currently lists it as 10, and we know it actually should just be 6. If we look up at the COUNT-IF function that was used for count the number of women who have valid exam scores entered, what we'll notice in terms of the second criterion value that's indicated is that the exam score does not equal a period. Well, we no longer use a period for missing data. So all I'm going to do is move the cursor up behind that period in the formula bar, backspace to delete the period, and so now we have just 2 double quotation marks next to each other, and hit return. And now we see the correct value is 6. So all I did then was change that second criterion for the COUNT-IFs function so that it is a blank, not a period. Now looking at the value, the average score, the mean for women, the average if function that was used returns the correct value. So this function treats an empty cell as non-numeric information, just like it treated a period. However, the remaining statistics all report incorrect information, that being for the median, minimum, maximum, range, standard deviation, and skew. What these remaining commands all have in common is that all of them have an if statement embedded inside another function. One of the idiosyncrasies of Excel is that an if statement evaluates an empty or blank cell as a mathematical 0. So the 4 women with no recorded exam scores are treated by the commands that have an if statement, that is for the median, minimum, maximum, standard deviation, and skew statistics here, as though their scores are 0. This is why the functions for these statistics return incorrect values for these statistics. What we need to do is include a second if statement in these formulas to exclude cases that have empty or blank cells from any statistical computation. For instance, I'll just click here on the cell for median, and we notice the formula that's entered up above. What we'll do is include in here another if statement, and I put this right after the comma behind female, if, open parenthesis, and I'll use the range, data range for the exam, that being D2 through to D18. Does not equal, and 2 double quotation marks next to each other, comma, and then the data range for the computation of the median. So this if statement, the second one here, will go to the exam values, and it will include cells for computation that do not have blank cells. Now I need to add in here a third close quotation, parentheses rather, and again remember to enter this Control, Shift, and Enter as an array formula. And there we see the correct value is a median of 76.25. I'll do the same thing here for minimum value rather, but let me go ahead and just delete this and start the formula from scratch. Equal min, open parenthesis, begin the first if statement, identify the range for sex, equal, and in double quotation marks female, comma, now the second if statement, and here this time I'm going to use the exam 1 values, do not equal empty or missing information, comma, and now I Again, highlight the data range for finding the median. One right parenthesis to close the first if statement, the second if statement, and now a third one that will close the minimum function, that statement itself. Control, Shift, and hit Enter. And we'll do the same thing for maximum value. Equal max, open parenthesis, if, open parenthesis, identify the criterion range, equals female in double quotation marks, comma, begin the second if statement, open parenthesis, exam 1 range for the second criterion does not equal blank, comma, and now if we satisfy both of those criteria here, that is female and does not have an empty cell, then we'll find the median of those cases that satisfy both conditions. And again, 3 quotation marks, since we have one if statement embedded in another if statement, which is embedded in the max function. Control, Shift, Enter. Same thing for standard deviation, and I'll just start that from scratch. Equal stdev dot s, open parenthesis, if, open parenthesis, equal female in double quotation marks, comma, begin the second if statement, exam score range for the second criterion range does not equal empty information, empty cell it is, comma, and then the data range for exam 1. And we need 3 sets of, or 3 right parentheses to finish that statement. And Control, Shift, Enter to enter it as an array formula. And I'll do the same thing for the skew statistic. Equal skew if start the second if statement, the second criterion range, and criterion value not equal to empty. Now the data range, 1, 2, 3 parentheses, right parentheses, and then Control Shift Enter or Command Enter if you're using a Mac. Again, the issue that we're dealing with here occurs when an if function is embedded in a statistical function. The COUNTIF and AVERAGEIF functions are not susceptible to this Excel idiosyncrasy, nor are the statistical functions when no if statement is included. Now you should have all the tools you need to generate descriptive statistics for quantitative variables in Excel, even in cases where there are missing data. Hope you found this useful.